Welcome to Colts Beer, the podcast where football fever meets cold beer. Here we talk all things Indianapolis Colts, from epic touchdowns to close games to the hottest NFL rumors. Sit back, grab your favorite beverage, and let's tackle the next quarter together. Go Colts!
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Colts Beer. It's the 11th episode, our first live episode. We're going live together because we are having a special guest. Kevin Bowen is with us. Before I give it to you, Kevin, I introduce my beer of the day in honor to our Scottish members. I was in Scotland this summer on vacation. It's a nice Tannet. I bought it there. It's a pretty nice one, pretty smooth one. So, yeah. I'm happy. So, Kevin, I think most Colts fans will know who you are, but probably will you say some words about yourself?
Yeah. So first off, thanks for having me, guys. Really an honor. You had me at football and beer. You don't need to say much more than that. So I appreciate it. A little earlier here in the States, or else I'd be enjoying a cold one with you. But yeah, I live here in Indianapolis. I work at the radio station where Colts games are broadcasted here locally. So when you hear Matt Taylor and you hear, the various voices there that are broadcasting Colts games, I work for that radio station. It's called 107.5 The Fan. I've covered the Colts for about 15 years, and I host a morning radio show here in town from 7 to 10 a.m. That's Eastern time each and every Monday through Friday.
Awesome. Thanks for coming on, Kevin. My beer of the day. Now, I'm going to apologize to our German listeners in advance. I was in the shop today and they got me with an Oktoberfest beer. It's probably got nothing to do with Oktoberfest, but they brand it for me. So this is Spartan, I believe it's called Spartan. I think you said, Andreas Christoph. Yeah, Oktoberfest. So Prost, guys. Is.
Yeah. Hi, Kevin. So my beer of the day is from Cologne, the Gaffel Wies. It is a special kind of the Cologne area beers, so it smells really nice. It is a little bit, unfiltered Kölsch, so it smells amazing.
Awesome.
So, yeah, I think we start with some questions. I think Sam collected some questions from the UK guys.
Yeah, as soon as you said you were coming on, Kevin, I got plenty of questions, so I'll try not inundate you with them. I think the first one that I'd actually ask is, as someone who's been covering Indiana sports for years, has there been a better time to cover Indiana sports as a whole than right now?
Yeah, I must say I got to make sure that hopefully I can come on for a second time, because all the beer descriptions are making me jealous. I need to come on and make sure I've got one the next time. I feel a bit naked here without my beer. I just got my water here at 2:00 in the afternoon. But yeah, it's an incredible time, Sam. I mean, it's for those unfamiliar, Indiana University's football team, about an hour south of Indianapolis. They're currently ranked number 2 in all of college football, which is beyond unheard of. It's been the losingest college football program in history. And Kurt Cignetti, their new coach now 2 years into it, just absurd what he's done there. So they're having a great season. You know, the Pacers, from an NBA standpoint, made a run all the way to Game 7, the final game of the NBA Finals, kind of an underdog story there. Purdue, the other college in the Big Ten, located about an hour north of here. They're the number 1 ranked basketball team in men's basketball preseason, and their Final Four, their championship game, is at Lucas Oil Stadium, where obviously the Colts play. So if they made it all the way there, they could play for a national title, which would be their first in school history, inside of Lucas Oil Stadium, which I can only imagine what the crowd would be like for that. Indiana Fever had a great season as well. So yeah, it's just been an unbelievable time here, and kind of different, honestly, from what we're used to here in recent years.
Yeah, and I think at the start of the season, after the whole QB battle and everything like that, I think it was the Colts that looked like we might be letting the city down. But all of a sudden, we're sitting here 6-1, and I mean, dare I say, best team in the NFL. I think us as Colts fans, and you as well, Kevin, obviously reporting on it. I think we've been well aware of how good this Colts team is. But I think after Sunday's win, the rest of the league might be taking notice now.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Sunday was kind of a measuring stick game. I think the Colts internally circled that one a little bit more. They realized the schedule had been, what it was through the first 6 weeks. And to be fair to the Colts, they had taken care of those teams in a very, emphatic way, really, and not what we are used to, or certainly even NFL teams. They don't typically, blow other NFL teams out. But that Chargers game, I think, meant a little bit more. Shane Steichen obviously has some history there as a coach, but just in terms of the competition, head coach, the quarterback, etc., game matters. And the Colts, I thought, handled their business in a really, really impressive way. And offensively, it's historic what they're doing. Maybe you can look at the defense right now, and there are some questions there that are probably a little bit fair, but offensively, it's surgical. It's absolutely clinical what they've done.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, that's a pretty good segue, actually, just talking about the defense. Do you get any sense from the organization? Obviously, the fans right now are kind of clamoring for a trade. I think we see what we've got on offense. We see how potent that is. And it feels like we're, with the injuries, obviously, adding to it as well, we're maybe 1 or 2 short on the defense. Do you get any sense that the trade that I think we all want to happen is coming at some point in the next 2 weeks?
Yeah, so just a brief little history, with Chris Ballard as general manager, they've only had one in-season trade, and that was really Nyheim Hines, I think, at the time, wanting out of, all that dysfunction that was happening, within that 2022 season. So we're not used to the Colts being buyers at all. Granted, we're not used to the Colts being 6-1 at this point in the season either. So given all of that, I do think there is some legit inside the building interest in making a trade. Now, the magnitude of that, what it looks like. I think there's a reason why the NFL typically doesn't have a lot of in-season trades. It's a tad complicated when it comes to, doing that. I think it's a little different than some other sports. And we probably should point out they have already moved one of their day 3 draft picks. That was a 6th-round pick for Mekhi Blackmon just before the start of the season. So, if you were to move another pick, maybe a 3rd or 4th, we know Chris Ballard's obsessed with draft picks. Would that cause any pause? Now, I certainly hear people that are saying, hey, in the NFL, it's not for long. When you've got an opportunity to pounce, you do that. And I think organizationally, they feel that way. So, again, what it looks like over the next 2 weeks will be interesting. As we record this, the NFL trade deadline is 2 weeks from today. So November 4th would be that. The NFL, I think, backed that up, if I'm not mistaken, a week here recently to try to have more teams kind of involved in it. So we will see what it looks like, because we've seen some NFL activity already here around the league. And when I look at defensive end and I look at cornerback, you could talk me into both of those positions being positions that you should look to upgrade.
Yeah, I think for me, I've kind of gone back and forth. We've spoken about it on the podcast as well, between defensive end and cornerback. After Sunday, I feel like I'm leaning cornerback now. Maybe, I know obviously we've got Ward to come back, so that's great. But for me, I'm thinking, to win in the AFC, you're going to have to go through Josh Allen. You're probably going to have to go through Patrick Mahomes. You've got all these quarterbacks that can extend. So even if you have an elite pass rush, these guys are going to make plays where you've got 3-4 seconds to cover. And I don't know. I feel like if we had an elite cornerback to go alongside what we've got with Javarius Ward when he's back, that'd be where I go. What would you do? I read your column after the game, so I've got a feeling I know where you'd go. But what do you think?
Yeah, it's funny. We had Joel A. Erickson from the Indianapolis Star, who I respect a ton, on our show this morning, and he did go corner as well. I think both are obviously premium positions. Like I said, you could talk me into probably either, but if I had to pick, I would go defensive end. Now, it's a bit of a shame that I go there because there's so much already invested into that position group. You've spent a whole lot, draft picks and finances, into that room. So that's kind of a bummer. Corner is one where it's a little bit more patchworky because of all the injuries that they've had. You mentioned Ward coming back. To me, I almost look at that a little trade deadline-y of like, hey, you're going to get him back. Who are you going to get back at defensive end?
Yeah.
To me, there's nobody there. And when you look at things right now, I just feel like they're not getting pressure. To simplify it, I don't think they're getting pressure quick enough. If you look at some of the deep analytics, they actually are pressuring at a decent rate. Their sack numbers, albeit a bit skewed based off pass attempts, sack numbers are actually top 10, but sacks per pass attempt, which I think is more of a true indicator of what you're doing. That's, I think, 19th right now. So to me, I look at it and say, well, when these quarterbacks can hold on to it, in the last 2 weeks, I think both Jacoby Brissett and Justin Herbert have been over 3 seconds. That's a long time. And if you can create some of that pressure but do it quicker with DeForest Buckner getting all these double teams, then I think your ability to disrupt impacts the passing game at a greater scale. Because over the last month, it just hasn't been good enough. If you go back to that Rams game, I want to say you're allowing over 330 per game from a passing yard standpoint. And that's, I think it's the second worst 4-game span of any team in the NFL this season. So, you mentioned some of those quarterbacks. I mean, Herbert and Josh Allen and, Patrick Mahomes, they're a wild card team, right now, if they were to, get there. We'll see how the AFC West plays out. To me, if you can disrupt initially, that is what I would try and do.
Awesome. Andres, I'll pass it over to you. I don't want to hog it all.
First of all, when we talk about defensive ends, do you have in mind any specific player we could grab?
Yeah, I think anytime you get to the trade deadline, you have to look at teams that are not near the top of the NFL. So you look at those bottom feeder teams, and whether that's Miami or the New York teams or the Raiders or the Saints, those are the teams that I think you'd be looking at. Miami, it seems to be the ones with kind of the most popular names mentioned of Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb. You look at the Saints with Carl Granderson. I know everyone, says Max Crosby and Trey Hendrickson, and I get the intrigue there, but, specifically with Cincinnati, they seem to me still in the win mode. I thought that was a big win they got on Thursday Night Football. They have the Jets this week, if I'm not mistaken. They didn't trade for Joe Flacco to be tanking. They traded for Joe Flacco to try and save it until Joe Burrow comes back. Certainly the Giants, where are they going to be at here in a couple of weeks? Brian Burns is, certainly fell. Would they be willing to side with him? They've been such a defensive line driven organization, but at some point, do they look at it and say, all right, we have a lot here. Could we try and add other places? So, those would be some of the teams, some of the names. I really stress too, deadline spur action. And, we are 2 weeks away from it. And, I know that we have seen some trades already in the NFL, but two things to keep in mind. One, where are you at health-wise now with Samson Ebukam and Tyquan Lewis dealing with some injuries? I know the Lewis injury doesn't sound too severe day-to-day. Is Ebukam going to miss time? If he is, does that impact you further? It's not just performance. Now it's available body base. Because to go back to Sam's question, they really don't even have corners, or they really don't have many defensive ends sitting on the practice squad, as guys they would even bring up. There's just one, JT Tuimoloau, the rookie out of Ohio State, the second-round pick. He played a little bit more on Sunday. He right now would be your third defensive end, depending on the health of Ebukam and Lewis. I think the other thing, too, to keep in mind, it's more of a league-wide thing, but, again, what happens these next 2 weeks? And I get it's just 2 games, but if you're a team right now sitting at, 3-4, 3-6 versus 5-4 sounds a whole lot different, based off how things look from a do you buy, do you sell, do you stay pat? So I think all of those things are just important to keep in mind. But again, I think the Colts are looking at making a move, but how it all unfolds is certainly a great mystery.
Yeah, you mentioned JTT. What sense do you get about JTT from the organization? Do you think, from a fan perspective, I'm trying to think whether they're maybe redshirting him almost. They thought, we've got what we've got at defensive end. We've got Tyquan Lewis. We've got Samson Ebukam. You've got 4 or 5 good pass rushers. Addy, I called him Addy because I still can't pronounce his name. He looks great when he's actually playing on third down, when he's in the pass rush mode. Do you think that they were trying to redshirt him, or do you think he's maybe not what they were expecting to have coming out of the draft?
By the way, I must say I love all your guys' setups. I just found myself looking deeper into the backgrounds at all you guys. I mean, here I am with a bunch of boxes. I told you guys at the start we're moving buildings here in downtown Indianapolis, so I apologize. You guys have such cool setups. I love those helmets. Gosh, I could look at those all day. As far as Tuimoloau, I'm a little confused by it, to be totally honest with you. Again, for our non-college football fans out there, this was a guy that played on the best team in college football last year and was a menace in their run to the national championship game. He was a stud against big-time opponents. So you sometimes see this in the draft, particularly with pass rusher. Teams draft more of projects, for lack of a better term. For example, if you look at like Kamoko Toure, a second-round pick by the Colts in 2018, he didn't really have much of a bona fide resume collegiately for, most second-round picks. But the thought was, hey, he has these athletic traits, this little glimmer, this little flash, we can kind of mold the clay. The thought with Tui Maluau is more of a finished project. Highly ranked recruit coming out of Washington. Again, produced at a really high level for several seasons on one of the best teams in college football. Lou Anarumo has had a thing where he plays older guys. And so, Ebicom coming off the torn Achilles and then Lewis have played over him. So he's the fifth defensive end when everyone's healthy. The Colts have kind of flipped back and forth. Some games they'll dress an extra defensive tackle for run, defense, and other games they'll dress an extra defensive end, i.e. Sunday when they play more passing teams. So I don't get the sense that they're like super disappointed with him. It's not like work ethic or, NFL life's too big. They just really haven't used him. And now they're going to have to. And I don't think there's any other choice. I think he's going to be a rotational guy. So I'm very eager to see what he can do here, because he's the one that you would maybe say is a little bit like the Travarius Ward thought at corner. Now, I'm not comparing the two, but like, okay, who is someone that hasn't played a lot at defensive end who all of a sudden could be kind of like a trade impact guy? I guess it would be him. Now, it's probably way too much to expect that out of a rookie to all of a sudden go like that midway through his rookie season. But, if he shows you something, do you sit there and say, hey, that's kind of our trade deadline move? To me, that sounds a bit far-fetched, but it is a thought I've had.
Yeah.
So we're having a question from the community. And Andy, it's one of our Irish members.
I know Andy's name. I see Andy on social all the time. What's up, Andy?
So, yeah, he's asking about the improvement of the offensive blocking. Well, what do you think about it? I mean, we all didn't expect losing, especially Ryan Kelly in the middle at center, having such a great O-line this year. What do you think about our O-line this?
Yeah, I think the offensive line has exceeded my expectations. Now, I was fine with Ryan Kelly and Will Fries moving on. I think just roster construction and mechanics, at some point, I say this phrase quite often on my podcast, you got to pass the torch. You can't re-sign everybody. You have to say at some point the money is here, and now we need to try and find cheaper, and then spend the money elsewhere. So, Tanner Bortolini and Matt Gonzalez have been, I think, very good at center and right guard. When you think about it, if I'm not mistaken, I believe the Colts offensive line has been intact for 6 of their 7 games, and the one time it wasn't, it was a loss. It was that Rams game when Gonzalez didn't play, and I thought that was probably the most pressure Daniel Jones has faced all season long. Now, granted, that opponent, I think, can certainly contribute to that. But, yeah, I would say the O-line has gotten back to being elite, and that's a big word to use. You obviously have invested a lot into that group. Shout out to the veterans, especially Quentin Nelson and Braden Smith, and the level that they've played at. I mean, think about Max Crosby a few weeks back, how quiet he was in that game, and he can be such a wrecker. So, yeah, the O-line's great. I mean, Andy, points out here, I mean, they've always been very good blocking tight ends and wideouts. That's been a staple throughout the Ballard eras. They've always been super physical, and, Mo Alley Cox, Michael Pittman Jr., probably the 2 front runners of that over the years, and then Drew Ogletree, and, Pierce is a willing blocker as well. And, yeah, I think that helps spring some of the Jonathan Taylor runs. I mean, certainly Taylor does, but I think you talk to any coach and they will say, to really create 14 into 40 or 7 into 70, you need the perimeter block. You need that, that guy that's going to seal off there at the second or third level to help spring that back.
Yeah, I think touching on Jonathan Taylor as well. I mean, this is the best I can remember him ever pass blocking in the pass blocking game. I think he's been phenomenal this season. And I mean, the 3rd and 17 play Sunday, which I think was, when watching it back today, it felt like that was the play that shifted the whole game. Like, it didn't feel like they could come back from that point. The chip block that he threw on Khalil Mack was not something I knew that JT necessarily had in his locker, but it was great to see.
No, it's a great point, Sam. I think as a pass catcher, he's had a drop or two, but for the most part, he's been pretty sound there too. And that was a question that I had entering the year. So, yeah, I think it's a good point. He's playing so much. You haven't really found that third down back per se, but he's playing so much. And one thing too, and obviously knock on wood, but man, he's been just so healthy. Amidst the contract issues, he was he was just banged up there for a while, and I can't recall the last time he's missed a practice. Even going back training camp, even going back to the spring period as well. So he's just been very, very healthy, which I know is kind of an elementary way to say it, but when you're that healthy, it's certainly going to impact you in a positive manner.
Mm-hmm. We have another comment. For me, it feels kind of a hot take, but Ulrich, he's the president of our Austrian Colts fans. Is it time to acknowledge Chris Ballard's teams were always a quarterback away? The teams work with Andrew Luck, Philip Rivers, and now with Daniel Jones. Was it always just a quarterback away on a team?
Yeah, it certainly is a thought that I've had, throughout this season. When you look at the 9 years of Ballard, the Luck season is your last playoff win, back in 2018, and then with Rivers, you obviously got to the playoffs and very easily could have won that game with Buffalo. I still think there are, some misses that have happened. We've talked a lot on this podcast today, for example, about pass rush and defensive end specifically. That's been a highly invested position when you look back on it. And that's one of the premium ones. To me, from an NFL sense, quarterback, wideout, offensive tackle, defensive end, and cornerback are kind of those premium positions that kind of stand above the rest. And investments, in particular at D end and corner, they have tried, particularly in the draft, to draft those, and for the most part, just haven't hit on really anyone in a significant manner in the early rounds. When you look at other positions, he's definitely hit. Linebacker, he's hit extraordinarily well. I think some of the interior offensive line spots, finding Wolf Rise in the 7th round and turning into whatever he was, of 60, hell, he might have been more than 60 million type of guy, would be one that falls into that boat there. So, to say you're a quarterback away, I can understand where the question comes from. It's not like the Colts have ever, truly bottomed out outside of 2022. 17, of course, was he had a lot of the previous regime players on that and really overhauled the defense in that first offseason there. But yeah, this is a team that, when you look at where it has been built, the one gripe that I think is pretty legit, I know hindsight sounds 2020, and not to rehash all of this, but I think the moment Andrew Luck shocks the world, you have to look at quarterback right away in that next draft. Again, trying to play the Band-Aid game. I know maybe this Daniel Jones thing obviously looks like it is working out right now, but it's difficult, and it's something where I think in an ideal world, to build that true 5 to 7 year window, to create that window, to me, that quarterback has to come from the draft. And if you look at the AFC in this time frame, Kansas City, Buffalo, Baltimore, they've had that window open for that time. I think having the rookie contract quarterback, and this is more of a financial thing more than anything, having that guy is huge. We're already talking about, wait, do you have money for Alec Pierce? Do you have money for Nick Cross? Do you have money for Braden Smith? Welcome to paying Daniel Jones next year. That's just that's a reality of where you're at. Great problem to have, but it's the difficulty when you do have that quarterback reach year 7 or whatever Jones is, and he's obviously not on the rookie deal anymore.
To be fair, when you said they should have addressed quarterback immediately in the draft, I'm pretty sure if Green Bay didn't took away Jordan Love in 2020, the Colts have picked him instead of Michael Pittman. It was just probably super surprising Green Bay took him right in front of us, though there wasn't a plan B.
Just to go over that draft. The Colts were at 13 overall. They traded that for Buckner, which obviously has worked out from a player standpoint, but it gets into positional impact. You've had a great defensive tackle. Unfortunately, the playoff success has been not with that during that time frame. Jordan Love, in the 20s, Jalen Hurts was the other quarterback that went, in that second round. had the feeling that the Colts weren't maybe totally like in love with Love. Sorry to use both those words. But, I think there was some intrigue and some curiosity about him, but, it just didn't feel like, because Green Bay, I think, traded back end around 1, if I remember correctly, to take him. So, again, hindsight's 2020, but I do think that probably should have been explored a little bit more than just all right, let's try to Band-Aid it up and see if we've got enough here.
Yeah, go on, Christoph.
Yeah, for me, it's a question around the quarterbacks. What do you think about Anthony Richardson? Is there any future in Indianapolis for him or on any team in the NFL? Because we all the whole time have a discussion because I tell his reads are not NFL-like. The rest is nice. He's a really strong arm. He's fast. But so what do you think about him and his future?
Yeah, I mean, I would be surprised if they've moved him in the next 2 weeks. I know a lot of people have asked me about that. I just don't see that. Yes, he's going to get a chance somewhere. I mean, quarterbacks don't get drafted that high and have, traits that he clearly has that just are one and done in this league. I don't see that. Obviously, he's got a ton of questions to answer, and his next stop, wherever that is, I just don't envision it here. Clearly, his camp, I don't think, has been thrilled with how the Colts blueprinted it or implemented the blueprint, and now the Colts would probably counter that and say, well, we don't feel like he executed it very well. It's probably a lot of he said, she said sort of situation here. If I'm Richardson, I probably just ride the year out and then, obviously try to get healthy, of course. And then at the end of the season, probably request a trade. He's got one more year, left on the rookie contract. For all parties involved, assuming Daniel Jones continues on this pathway, I don't really see him coming back here. At some point, he probably gets a little frankly, as well. I'm not acting like you can get a great draft pick for him, but, could you trade a pick here in the next 2 weeks for a defensive end and then, reprieve that pick back, in the offseason by trading Richardson at that point there. So it's a bummer because I think there are a lot of super intriguing traits. And, I think the longer Daniel Jones plays, the more people act like Anthony Richardson was just this utterly horrific quarterback. And I think that's overblown. I don't think he was as bad as people have all of a sudden made him out to be. He definitely had some deficiency in some areas that he wasn't good in. But, win-loss record for your quarterback was 8-7 with Richardson, and you fired the defensive coordinator that was with him the whole time. So, clearly he was doing something halfway decent to at least, keep in games of that magnitude.
We have another question about another young kid in our roster. You're pretty close to the team. What do you think about AD? Actually, I mean, he made one stupid mistake. I don't get how people get that mad about him for long term. So what do you think? What do you see every day about AD? Well, how is this process actually?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't think it's like a work ethic thing or anything internally where the Colts are upset about his character, things like that. It's just on Sundays, there's been multiple occasions where the reliability is not there for him. I did think he had a nice catch on Sunday, and securing that ball there. He actually played a special teams rep too. I think he was out on gunner, which I think is important for him to try and incorporate that. I know it's not him playing receiver, but I think that's critical for him to just prove to be more dress game worthy, frankly. Shane Steichen has clearly punished him, and I would say in a more significant manner than I thought. I thought it would be a 1 week thing, or at least, to put myself in a Steichen shoes, I thought, 1 week is fine. To me, it was not only that play, but the holding penalty later in that Rams game, was such a backbreaker as well. So I kind of looked at Mitchell and thought it'd be 1 week, and really it's been 2. And then if you look at last week, the Chargers game, he only played 5 snaps. Which I thought he maybe would play a little bit more, especially with Josh Downs out, but they really opted for a lot of Anthony Gould. Now, this guy's 2 years into a 4-year rookie deal. I'm not looking to trade him. I'm not looking to cut him. I'm not looking to do any of that. He is an insanely talented individual, and sometimes guys need more nurturing. And I think at times we're so quick to kind of cast off some of these. Like, I was fine with Jelani Woods getting another chance in training camp. Like, he's making what, $900,000? Who cares if he, the worst thing is all of a sudden he leaves and then he blossoms somewhere else because you didn't see out the whole, project, if you want to label someone like that. Now, I think the unfortunate thing with Mitchell this year is Alec Pierce is going to command major money. The Colts had turned down a second-round pick for him back in April. I mean, that goes to show you what the NFL world thinks of him. And I would argue Pierce is more to improve his, overall repertoire this season. So, can you re-sign Pierce? This gets back into the conversation we had a few minutes ago about Daniel Jones and the money and all of it. Michael Pittman Jr., does he get a third contract here? Pittman only re-signed for 3 years. His thought was, let me get 2 years into it and then do another one. So, these are all questions that you're about to have. But as far as Mitchell is concerned, I mean, this sounds bad to say, and I don't mean it in this light, but, if Pittman or Pierce were to go down for an extended period of time and Mitchell was forced into, now, of course, they might just say, Doolin, here you go, you're back in there. But if Mitchell was forced into a month of playing time, could you get a better idea of exactly what it looks like? If you had to live with some of the growing pains and you almost couldn't take him out, and then all of a sudden you got to the end of the game and you're like, well, he did have those 1 or 2 screw-ups, but he also made, 6 catches for 72 yards and, something along those lines. What could you see there? So obviously no one is rooting for injuries here, but, for the Mitchell side of it, it almost seems like he'll need something like that to happen in order to get a true evaluation on him, or I should say a further evaluation on him.
Yeah, and a quick follow-up on what you just mentioned there, and shout out to Chris from the UK group who asked this. Obviously, this offseason now, we've got Daniel Jones, Braden Smith, Kwity Paye, AP, and Nick Cross.
Yeah.
I mean, you probably can't re-sign all 5 guys, would be my guess. If you were to rank those to which ones you would and wouldn't sign, where would you go with that list?
Yeah, Jones, Pierce. Give them to me again. Braden, Cross. Who's the 5th one?
Kwity Paye.
Yeah, I definitely let Kwity walk. I think I'd let Braden Smith falls into the pass the torch. Again, in an ideal world, yeah, you would bring back everybody, but I just don't think that's realistic. You got to look at the dollars and the cents of it. Jalen Travis, a 4th-round pick out of Iowa State. I think there is some intrigue there in what he could be. Gonzalez, I do think, is going to be a guard. I know some people have debated, could you bump him back out to tackle? But those 3, paying 2 safeties big money, I don't think is ideal NFL puzzle pieces putting together. But I Cross has played really sound football, and I don't know what your depth looks like there. So Jones and Pierce, I think, are the big ones. It's probably worth pointing out too, some other extensions have to be thought about. Pittman, Nelson. I'm trying to think who else falls into that camp there. There's got to be somebody else defensively. Maybe Taylor. Maybe it's a little early on that. But, giving a running back a 3rd contract sounds wild. But Taylor, again, he could be one that defies a little bit of those odds there. So
maybe Kenny Moore as well, I think.
Look at that. Yes, I should have known the old 23 jersey. Yeah, and again, do you pass the torch there? Is that Justin Wally time coming off the torn ACL? All of these are just fascinating debates, but they're great debates. I mean, we're because we're kind of saying it in the light of like, wait a minute, is this window with kind of this group, this Ballard group, Kenny, Franklin, Buckner, Nelson, Braden Smith, with this kind of Ballard core, does it have a 2 to 3 year run left in it? Because Nelson is getting up there, Kenny's getting up there, Buckner's getting up there, Grover is getting up there. You do have a lot of guys nearing 30, early 30s. Do you view it of, hey, we might have 2-ish years? Jones, you would hope age wise would have a lot longer than that, but is that a thought that you would have here? But definitely some decisions to be made with that list.
When we talk about decision making, we have another question in the comments. Peter, he's from Germany. If you ever need any statistic Ask Peter, he know everyone. Uh, and hi, Kevin. Owner question. What's your feeling about Carly having input in decisions like trades, drafts, or contracts? How hands-on is she actually, and how much she will be? I mean, she's pretty close to the team, much closer than probably every other owner in the league. So yeah, what's your opinion about that?
Yeah, it's a great question, Peter. I mean, certainly there's a bit of an unknown. I think Carly is extremely thorough in her football education and has been that throughout the organization. And I think she'll ask a lot of questions of why and why not. And I think those are important questions to ask when you're a person in that position of authority. But she doesn't strike me as one that would cross the line in terms of, demanding certain things. And for the most part, I think her dad was like that. I think at times he kind of got painted a little unfairly. Yes, there were some things he definitely wanted and demanded. And anytime the owner says they want something, you're probably a little bit more prone to go ahead and do that. I think we speak for everybody in work. So, again, I see Carly being very educated in it, and he is going to, ask those questions. But I think you hire people in those positions for reasons. And, I think if Carly looked organizationally and said, hey, why are we bottom third in anything? She's going to ask that question, and she's going to want to get answers to it and commit resources to try and improving in those areas. So, for example, right now, I would assume she's asking, hey, pass rush wise or defense wise, we got 2 weeks. Is there something we can do? What are the pros? What are the cons of it? And to me, she is, a person that you want in a position like that, because I think she's going to ask the right questions without crossing that line of demanding things just to demand things and be, maybe an emotional decision maker, which was probably one of her dad's, bigger faults.
Yeah, I mean, quick follow up on that one. Obviously, I think at the start of the season, with all the quarterback battle decision and everything like that, I think the question was how hot was Chris Ballard and Shane Steichen's seat. Now 7 games, and we should say we're only 7 games in, so there's still a long way to go. Are we now more thinking about extensions for those guys as opposed to whether they're going to be here next year?
Yeah, it's definitely a totally fair question, and one that I've thought about. Hey, I'm trying to think back to, I want to say Ballard and Reich got extended through 2026, if I remember correctly. Yeah. So assuming that hasn't been touched, Ballard's got one more year, and then Steichen, I want to say it was originally a 6-year deal, so he was 2023 higher, so you still have several more years on that. It's, to me, it's one of the bigger unknowns of just, we just don't know. In an NFL life, I would assume those extensions would occur, but the reason why I do pause just a little bit is we don't know how Carly Ursay will run the show, truly run the show. And when she was hired, she was not in a position, just with how the NFL calendar works, to do anything. Even if, whatever, she felt like the previous resume deserved to have some action there. So that is where I can't answer it totally confidently. And if this trajectory goes, and knowing how GMs and head coaches typically work, you don't want to, let go of Shane Steichen. With how well he has coached. And, obviously from a GM standpoint, the GM typically hires the head coach. So, letting go of Ballard, but keeping Steichen, is that awkward? We've seen that happen around the league where teams have, had GMs that haven't hired that coach, and then boom, they make a move. Tennessee being the poster child of it with Mike Vrabel, a couple of years ago, and that thing got awkward quick. And I think Tennessee is highly regretting it now. So that's just the one unknown of I'll speak from my, personal background here at the radio station. When you get new bosses, usually change happens. So that's just how it goes, whether those people are doing great things or not doing great things. They want to hire their own people. But in this case, Carly obviously has relationships with Chris and with Shane, probably more involved with Shane than, Chris going all the way back. I think her dad was much more involved with that hire back in 2017. So my assumption would be, yes, they are here, and potentially extensions would be there, but there's just the old unknown of how quickly does she want to make her stamp, and what would that look like if and when she does.
Mhm.
So, and again, I love it that the chat is pretty active on my first live episode. Ulrich again, uh, he's asking for JT having that huge amount of workload he actually have. You said luckily he's healthy probably as never, but if we get closer to the playoffs and he still will play or have to play, actually he will play that much. Uh, will it be an issue going down the stretch?
Yeah, this is a real question that I have as well. I think they'd be wise to try and scale back a little bit with him right now. If you look at the games where they've played competitive teams, Denver, the Rams, those games that have been really close, he is playing a ton of snaps. I mean, it's right up there with Christian McCaffrey in terms of how many snaps he's playing. And it's a grind, man. 17 weeks is a grind, and then you tack on whatever you are going to tack on from a January standpoint. I want him as fresh as possible, and I get it. Some of his great success is because he plays so much, and in the third and fourth quarter, he can outlast a lot of these guys. And to me, Amir Abdullah has proven to be pretty reliable here in the last couple of weeks. I'd be curious if they go back to DJ Giddens at all. But I think I'm not saying Taylor's got to sit the whole series. You do see some teams that literally do that. They will sit their starting running back for an entire series. But sitting him a little bit more than they currently are. I'm trying to think of Sunday. Sunday, he probably was right around 90% of the snaps again. I mean, that's a big in a game you won by 2 scores. I mean, that is a big, big number. So, yes, that is something that I think I would like to see them do. But I'm not holding my breath. Knowing how they operate, I'm not saying that's a guarantee at all.
So, Kevin, you told us you have about 30 minutes in here. We actually took you for 40.
I got 5 more minutes if we want to chat about anything else. This has been terrific.
Yeah. Before you leave, just 2 more quick questions. Will you be able to come to Berlin?
So, unfortunately, I will not. My wife is actually due with her 3rd kid Monday after the Monday after the game, right? Isn't it the 9th?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I will not. I've shared the story before. I went to the game at Wembley in 16 against Jacksonville. I mean, to say I loved it would be an understatement. Now, it was my first time overseas, and so there's probably an element of that. But I thought it was awesome. We stayed up at the Grove, I remember. I still think NFL teams are utilizing that facility that come over there. I was blown away by Wembley. Regent Street that Friday before was one of the coolest things I've seen. I remember Bjorn Werner. I remember seeing him in the crowd walking up to the stage. I still look at the pictures on my phone from that fan fest. And we were at Admiralty, I believe, is the pub that we did some radio from there on Friday as well. And the stadium was just awesome. So I think the international games are so great. I want NFL. I hope that we get to a point in time, the whole franchise debate. I get there's some difficulties there, but I'd love to see where every team is playing probably every other year. I mean, could you go 8 games? That's what, 16 teams every year. I mean, that to me seems very doable. So yeah, I hope it's a great game. I mean, I'm glad that the Colts are playing this well, and finally Germany, or finally one of the international games, will have some marqueeness. And I think Atlanta's a fun team. I think they've got some entertainment as well. And Raheem Morris is a guy the Colts really loved in their head coaching search that settled on Shane Steichen. So unfortunately, I will not be there in spirit and brewing the coffee early in the morning, and hopefully a little more entertaining than Colts Patriots in Frankfurt.
So,
Yeah, the beer definitely got us through that one.
Yeah, I can imagine.
So before we let you pick the Titans game before you leave, you talked about your kids. I think Dan have a question from the UK group too.
Yeah. Well, I was going to ask, do we have any early indication on which way Max is leaning for Sunday?
Yeah, that is a great question. I actually just moved the helmets up to our kitchen before work today. I'm like, all right, got to make sure that we do them tonight. Helmet pick. He picked Colts over Titans back in week 3. That was, of course, an outdoor pick. I go outdoors for the outdoor games. We'll be inside tonight, assuming that we do the pick tonight. So a little humbled after last week. He had 5 straight wins.
Yeah.
So yes, this is my 3-year-old son.
Yeah, I saw he went for the tie initially, and then had to pick someone.
I know, and I was like thinking to myself, oh my gosh, if Herbert leads this back, and all of a sudden this game goes into overtime, we need to move to Las Vegas, and all of a sudden get this kid into some bigger and better things. So
yeah.
his record is a pretty good record here. So I assume he'll go Colts. The Titan helmet a little bit intimidating on the side of it. But we'll see how it unfolds. For the Berlin game, I'm a little nervous. The Falcon and he's got affinity for animals on the side of helmets, so we'll see how that goes.
Awesome. No, yeah. Last one. Give us your pick for Sunday.
Yeah, I think the Colts will roll. Absolutely roll. I know Cam Ward's probably been a little bit better than some of the numbers have indicated, but one thing about the Colts, and this credit to Chris Ballard, he has really prided himself on high individual character players, and to me, that means when you get into games where you're this massive favorite, your football character is so high, you don't overlook them. You don't necessarily treat them, in a cocky manner. So I'd be surprised if the Colts, came out slow or sluggish or things like that. They've handled their business so well in these games already this season, and this one, probably to another level, considering they're a 14-point favorite, which is obviously a big number in the NFL. But yeah, I fully expect them to handle their business well. And then I'm really looking forward to the rest of the schedule. For those that watched Seattle last night, games like Pittsburgh and at Kansas City after the bye, and San Francisco's a Monday night game here at Lucas Oil. Once you get through Tennessee, you're really facing a lot of teams right there. Either playoff teams or right there in the mix. So I think it'll be really healthy for the Colts to face that competition in the second half of the season to kind of ride into whatever the postseason run looks like.
Yeah, maybe some more games to be flexed. Looking at the schedule, I think that Chiefs game has got a flex written all over it,
which is not good for you guys. From a sleep
it's that middle window game, which is just an odd one for me. Like if it's 1 o'clock in the morning, it's better because you kind of you set yourself up for that day. But it's that 9 till 12. And it's just like, no, that's a bit of an odd one.
No, yeah, Kevin, thank you very much. Thank you that you took your time. Thank you for being with us. You said you would like to come back in the beginning. You're always welcome here. So yeah, I will leave you a message after we're done. Thank you very much. We are really honored to have you here. Yeah.
Definitely.
Well, thank you guys for having me. I was honored when I saw the message, and I genuinely mean it. I'd love to come back. I think one of the coolest things about doing this job is seeing how global there are fans out there and how much people appreciate your work. So it's one of the many reasons why I love sports. So you guys enjoy it. For those that are going to the Berlin game, have an absolute blast, and hopefully we can do this again. Maybe around playoff time.
That sounds good.
So
cheers, Kevin.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers. Thanks. So for all the others still looking, we will keep on staying for a while. We're going to get closer, I think, into the Titans game. Yeah. How do you guys feel about basically it feels like no one is playing on Sunday? Is it again like Arizona kind of a trap game, or is it just roll over them?
Yeah, I mean, I saw that Simmons isn't playing, so obviously they released Lockett. Simmons isn't going to play. Who else are they missing? I felt like I read they're missing someone else. Snead, yeah. I mean, yeah, it's one of the division games. They can be trappy. It just feels, honestly, right now at home, I don't know if any game feels particularly trappy with the way this offense is playing. Like I can see on the road if the crowd's loud, the offense could get out of sync. In the Chiefs game, for instance, that could be a tough one for the offense to stay in rhythm. But just at home, I don't know. It feels like another game where anything less than 30 points would be a surprise for us.
Yeah, for me, the game is, I hope JT can stay sometimes at the bench and our starter sitting there because usually you need to destroy the Titans. The team is really bad. The own quarterback says, holy, we are really bad. So, you don't can say we lose there. So I hope Steichen brings our starters on the bench sometimes. So AD Mitchell, good. Maybe Doolin comes back. So they are our starters at this game. It is a little bit easier. And Pierce is healthy. Pittman is healthy. Abdullah makes a good job. So this may be better to let him bring more snaps. That's my hope for this weekend.
And
but this is a safe win. No discussion about the win.
And maybe Tyler Goodson as well at running back. I think he's been practicing at least for the past couple of weeks. He just hasn't made the game day roster yet. So he could be back, another guy to take some of the load off of JT maybe. Because, the Chargers game, I think it was that on that final drive where, we're up 2 scores and I think it was like 3 minutes on the clock and we still had JT out there. And I'm like, why is JT still out there? Please put anyone else out there right now. But
these 2 scores against the Chargers, we're all Colts fans for a long time. It was like 3 minutes ago, 2 scores ahead, and I was still sitting in front of my TV and, oh, fuck, I hope they didn't blow that
away. Their final drive, the 4th downs were killing me. Even at 4th and 27 or whatever it was. It was absolutely killing me. I was like, I just felt like I'd seen it before. But, I guess that is the one thing that I think is a bit different to us this year is we don't seem to be, touch wood, doing things like we did against the Vikings. I think the Cowboys, we did it where we just get blown out for a quarter. A bit like what happened to the Giants on Sunday. We just all of a sudden give up 30 points in a quarter. Right now, touch wood, doesn't feel like this team's going to do that. So it's been fun to watch. What about you, Andreas? What are you saying about Sunday?
I think, on Arizona, I was more afraid of that this could go wrong. It barely went wrong. But yes, this Sunday, last time the Colts played at Lucas Oil, I was there. It was really fun. We played 3 awesome quarters. In the last quarter, we just stopped playing football, but it still was enough till the end. I think it will be a dominant win against this Titans team. It should be.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the big question for me is who's booking their flights to Indy for sort of mid to late January. That's what I keep looking at the moment.
Why Indy when you can book San Francisco?
Well, I was thinking about this, but I feel like going to watch obviously it's too early to say, but say we're the number 1 seed. No, I feel like a home Lucas Oil playoff game would be awesome to go see.
Yeah, it would be nice. Yeah, but I think home playoff game is. Then you go to San Francisco. It's maybe cheaper. So I remember last time the Colts. We was there 2 years ago at loser Texans. Mm-hmm. Marcel and me was staying there in hope of a playoff game at Indy. So after the lose, outside was Caleb Bailey, the event manager, the event director of the Colts. So and the Colts have buy some drones to make a horseshoe and celebrate the playoffs. And then the only thing was the horseshoe. Thank you for it. So and the franchise was buying some drones for a special moment outside. You come off the stadium and then you lose with 1 pass. So I think it is big in Indy. All Indy fans
told me, hey, if you stay here and we go in the playoffs, the whole city is blue. We make all in blue. So, and to see it one times live, yeah, it's a good thing, yeah.
Yeah,
We have Brody. He was there in that 2023 loss. Yeah, it was Christoph, Marcel, and me was there too. At the Texans game.
Yeah.
Marcel and me were lucky enough to get invited to suites right behind the end zone. Though the last play happened right in front of us. So yeah, it was really a rough day.
Yeah, I can still see that play right now. So that was a killer, that play.
It was okay. I was staying with some guys of the blue crew in the area. So you start with this bomb touchdown. You 0-7. Fuck. Okay, that's over. The whole game was going to the Texans. Oh God, why? So then we come back and you see only how we get it. This playoff safe and. Why he dropped this fucking ball? This was not a nice moment. This was the ball comes down. Okay, we go out. No, it's over. So no.
Yeah.
One of the craziest moments for the Cardiac Colts for me.
It's like
some
plays.
0-3 in Perth. That's tough.
Okay, but you need to think the best part for me and Marcel of this game is. We got some little giveaways. So Marcel and me was driving with the car with the blue crew. Andreas was driving to a hotel and it was raining. So it was a paper bag. So Andreas was driving on electro scooter and sent him this message. Fuck, my back is broken. The signed ball and the helmet are dropping back on the street. So the whole time, Marcel and me, we see Andreas, we are laughing about this.
So it was really awesome. The Colts gave us we don't know why they gave us all a signed football, a signed helmet, a signed blue was in there, and I don't know if something huge else was in it. Yeah, and I was after the game. It was snowy, rainy, damn cold, drunk, and. Yeah, having all this stuff took with me, it was such a mess. So, yeah, about Brody's message, Brody, you're actually not allowed to go to games this year.
Yeah. I'd ask, is Brody coming to Berlin? That'd be how I'd ask it. I mean, obviously we didn't fully touch on it this week, just obviously with Kevin. But what do we think about the Chargers game? I mean, the offense just were humming, right? I mean, looked unstoppable on offense.
Those offense just can, if they play like the Chargers most of the time, every team will have stress with that offense. I mean. What JT is doing, how the O-line's blocking, Tyler Warren, Daniel Jones.
Wait. You talk positive at Daniel Jones?
I never talked bad about him. I just don't rank him top 5 or stuff like that.
That Tennant's beer must be strong, right? That must be some serious alcohol in that one.
On my list is after the Super Bowl, his shame walk around the stadium.
I'm still on it. If Daniel Jones brings us Super Bowl, I will be in Indy and take the wall of shame. I'm pretty sure a lot of people need to join me.
Yeah, I think there's a fairly long list, I'd say, of us that were out on Daniel Jones, definitely at the start.
So we have, I think it's Flo from the profile picture. He said to Brady, "Yeah, just stay away from the playoffs, and then you're good for 1 or 2 this season." That's a good point.
Who thought as Colts fans we'd be talking about the playoffs in week 7? the way the
Yeah,
season
crazy.
started. Didn't see it coming. But
So yeah, guys, I think we had an awesome win against the Chargers. We didn't talk about it much, but yeah, we have an awesome guest, Kevin. If you watch it, still thank you again.
definitely.
Really appreciate the activity in the chat.
Mhm.
Thanks everybody for watching us, going live with us for the first time. So next week we are going to be live again. Uh, so guys, help me. I think it's Monday, or is it Tuesday?
Tuesday,
Tuesday.
It's Tuesday.
7 o'clock for Germans and 6 o'clock for the UKs.
And we will have another tremendous guest. It's JJ Stankiewicz. Will join us next week. We will do it live again. So if you have any questions to JJ, save it. Let us know. You can join us. You can ask it in the chat, or you can send it to us before. So yeah, thanks everybody for watching. See you next week with another win, hopefully. Cheers.
Cheers, guys. Go Colts.